Hello, and welcome to another episode of the CIRS Group Podcast. I'm Barbara,
And I'm Jacie.
and today we are talking all about binders, guys. What do they do? Which ones to take? How do you take them? Why do they suck sometimes? All the stuff. But before we get into it, of course, none of this should be considered medical advice. We are not practitioners. You should be listening to your practitioner, unless they're telling you to do something dumb. So we hope that this episode gives you some good information so that you can take this information and these questions to your practitioner and make sure that they know what they're doing and that they're giving you the right binder and all of that stuff. Without further ado, let's get into binders. How do you feel about binders, Jacie?
They're a necessary thing. I won't even say evil. They're just
Yeah,
a thing you have to do as
sure.
a CIRS patient.
Yep.
So when you have
That's
CIRS, chronic inflammatory response syndrome, you have a genetic predisposition to being really bad at eliminating a biotoxin. And so the binders are stepping up for the part of your immune system that isn't eliminating the biotoxin, and it helps remove the biotoxin from your body. So binders bind to toxins in the body and help your body eliminate them.
Yes. And of course, we've done a whole episode on biotoxins. You can go check that out if you're curious about what that could be. It's generally things like mold, tick-borne infections, cyanobacteria, all kinds of fun stuff like that. The thing about these biotoxins is once they get into your body and you develop CIRS and you have it because you're genetically predisposed, you will notice multiple systems getting affected in your body with multiple symptoms. So that's a really key component to CIRS that separates the wheat from the non-wheat of
Chaff, the wheat from the chaff.
that's a joke. What I don't remember what movie it's from. The wheat from the non-wheat because somebody couldn't remember chaff.
Oh,
I
okay.
don't
I'm gonna have to look that
You
up
haven't,
later.
I know, it's fine. It's okay. So because so many systems are being affected, that's like a very key component of CIRS. And the problem is your body is stuck in the innate immune system freaking out on you and causing a bunch of inflammation. And conventional medicine probably won't be able to help you. They're not going to be looking at your innate immune system. They're going to be checking autoimmune tests and like other things that are on the adaptive immune system side. That's not where CIRS lives. The reason this is important to know is I just want to explain why if you've had all these problems and you've gone to your regular doctor and you've seen specialists and nobody can see anything wrong with your blood work and maybe it's in your head and here's an antidepressant, goodbye, that'll be $10,000. You know that actually there is another route to take, and it is to test the correct blood markers to confirm that you indeed have CIRS and there is a path to healing, and it is called taking binders and lots of other things. But today we're talking about binders.
So by bunch of other stuff, Barbara means the Shoemaker protocol. So the Shoemaker protocol is a 12-step protocol. Everyone does steps 1, 2, most people do 3, most people do 12, but the rest are dependent on your blood work. Most conventional medicine doctors aren't going to be aware of the Shoemaker protocol, and it is the only clinically proven path to healing from CIRS. So what you're looking for is a Shoemaker certified practitioner. You can find them on survivingmold.com. Also, if you have a functional medicine doctor or naturopath who is open to it, you might be able to educate them. There's also people who have been certified by Shoemaker, but don't keep up their certification on the website because it's like a few $100 a year. So a great place to find doctors that might not be listed on the website, but are Shoemaker certified or are aware of the Shoemaker protocol is by joining a community like the CIRS group.
Yeah, ask around, see what people, if someone has already tried out a doctor and they turn out to be great and they really know what they're doing and they're in your area, yay, now you know about them and you can see them too. So, how do you know what binder to take? There's a lot of stuff online. I would say mold illness isn't mainstream per se, but I would say the mainest stream portion of mold illness talks a lot about over-the-counter binders. And when I say that, charcoal and clay and even probiotics have been talked about, fulvic acid, humic acid, fiber even. The problem is what you first need to do is get your genetics tested. If you get your genetics tested and you have one of the HLA haplotypes, that means you are predisposed to developing CIRS. Those other binders and just supporting your body in the detox process is not going to cut it. As Jacie already said, you need binders to help your body get rid of that junk. And that's the difference. So I guess we're talking to the 25% of the population who's genetically predisposed to CIRS. If you don't have those genes, congratulations. You might be able to follow a less strict protocol. But wouldn't you want to do the best protocol? I'd still want to do the best protocol. And that's why we love the Shoemaker protocol so much.
So if you are not taking charcoal, bentonite clay, fiber, etc., what are the correct binders to take? So Shoemaker has found that cholestyramine, often shortened to CSM, Welchol, which has the generic name of cholecephalem, and MycoBind, which is an over-the-counter alternative but has some downsides. One, it's not as effective, and two, if you are oxalate sensitive, you're going to have a bad time. Those are the three that are recommended by the Shoemaker protocol. Now, CSM and Welchol are both prescription drugs, so you do have to work with a provider to get them. And what they are, old school bile sequestrants. So if you are someone who has high cholesterol and you're working with a conventional GP or PCP, you may be able to get cholestyramine or Welchol from them based on having elevated cholesterol. Definitely work with a proficiency partner or Shoemaker certified something if that is the route you're going, because we had a horror story in the group the other day where someone's GP recommended they take like 16 call a day. Max dose for a CIRS patient is 6. And typically you titrate that up. So going 16 straight out the gate, I can't imagine what that felt like. I would have been knocked out.
Yeah, that is rough. Thankfully, she was in the group and was able to get some good advice from other members and us. And I think the person's doing all right now. But yeah, all the more reason if you're not in the CIRS group, you should join to avoid any issues like that, especially if you're going to work with your GP or PCP. And you'll probably need a little bit of additional guidance on how to do the protocol if you're not working with someone who's Shoemaker certified themselves.
So what makes cholestyramine, Welchol, and MycoBind better than the other binders? For one, some of the natural binders won't survive your stomach acids. You'll take it and they will dissolve in your stomach, and then that's the end of the story. But more importantly, CSM, Welchol, and MycoBind all have the correct receptor cell site size where they can actually grab onto the biotoxins because they are the correct size and they're the correct charge. So biotoxins have a negative charge, and then generic binders like charcoal and clay also have a negative charge. So they're just repelling each other, really. The difference with cholestyramine, Welchol, and MycoBind is they have a positive charge. So not only are they the correct size, they're the correct charge, so they magnetically attract to each other, and they can help you eliminate them more effectively. CSM is the gold standard, and then Welchol is a little less effective than that. That said, it is a little more gentle, and then MycoBind is less effective than Welchol, and again, can be more gentle if you are someone who's having trouble tolerating the binders, and we'll get into that in a minute.
Yep. And one more thing just to note, because this is a big thing in the more mainstreamy mold community, is antifungals. Anything with azole at the end of the medicine name is likely an antifungal. For some reason, a lot of doctors that are not in the Shoemaker camp love to prescribe these. It's like molds in your body. Let's do an antifungal. It'll kill it. The problem is, and there's some research to show that there's a big risk of brain atrophy with those drugs. Now, if you have a systemic issue, a big infection, and you need to take it, take the life-saving medication. By all means, talk to your doctor, talk to your doctor. But unless that's the case, a lot of these practitioners are just handing it out like candy and not really monitoring any potential damage that could be done to the brain. And yes, you can repair your brain using VIP spray. That is the 12th step of the Shoemaker protocol. But I do worry that some of these practitioners are not necessarily doing that because a lot of these practitioners are not medical doctors in the sense that they are not necessarily able to prescribe. And VIP is another prescription drug in the Shoemaker protocol. You just want to be sure that you're working with someone who cares about the health of your brain and is monitoring that. We'll link some more research in the show notes if anybody's interested in looking at that more deeply.
How to take the binders. So a lot of people, when they first start on the binders, I'll just share my experience of the binders. I felt narcoleptically sleepy. Like I was just so tired. A lot of people get constipated. I had the opposite effect. I'd be pooping. So one, it messes with whatever your current bowel schedule is, bowel movement schedule is. And then two, it can make you feel really fatigued, like really fatigued. I was taking 2-hour naps in the middle of the day when I first started them.
Same. Yeah, absolutely. And a lot of people will combat the constipation side with taking different types of magnesium or other supplements to kind of move things along. And same thing as when a regular doctor prescribes you something that might be constipating, you'll also probably take something to counterbalance that. Same kind of idea. I will say though, if you are experiencing a lot of fatigue or like so much that you like can't do daily activities, you're being affected in a really negative way, could be a good sign to either back up on the dose, drop down a little bit, or even maybe stop taking it for a second and let your body recover. It may also mean that you're still in exposure. And I know a lot of people do start the protocol when they are still in exposure. They haven't had time to remediate yet. They haven't had time to move or whatever their plan is. But sometimes having an influx of more biotoxins in your body while you're also taking binders, which are essentially kicking up those biotoxins within you as they're collecting them. It's a 1-2 punch that makes the protocol really hard to tolerate in the beginning. So that's something obviously talk to your doctor about. If you start to get worsening symptoms, you definitely want them involved to help you decide what to do next.
And it is normal to titrate up on the binders. So I started with one once a day, then one twice a day, then one 3 times a day, and then two once a day, and then one, I would take one and one, and then two, two, one, two, two, two. So if you're taking Welchol, full dose is 6 pills a day, 2 at a time, 3 different times during the day. I think I said that in the most confusing way possible. But the point is you're scaling up, so it's not like this like really hard all of a sudden you're taking 6 binders at a time. You do want to give your body the time to adjust to that. And part of that is because you want your detoxing systems to be working correctly. So the binders will grab onto the biotoxins, and then it's up to your detoxing systems to actually remove it from your body. And so that looks like making sure you're pooping every day, at least once a day, every day. You can also support this by doing saunas, or if you don't tolerate the sauna, you can do a hot bath. I had to do hot baths. I'm not a sweater, and so saunas just make me feel ill, but I can do hot baths and it still supports those detox processes, not as effectively, but if you got to do what you got to do.
Yeah. And again, this is why, you should work with your practitioner because you may also want to tweak your diet or your lifestyle to help you poop more or help you sweat more and other supplements that your practitioner may recommend to help the process along, which also includes something that we didn't talk about yet, but generally speaking, everybody should be on some kind of lipid replacement therapy before they go into taking binders. We did a whole episode on this. So we'll link that as well. Man, we've called out so many episodes today. We've done a lot of episodes. But basically, you want to build up the fats in your system because the binders are going to be stripping out of your fats because that's where toxins are stored. So you want to just build up that level that you already have in your body before you start taking the binders. It's going to make you have less unpleasant side effects if you follow that protocol. And in fact, if you have a really bad reaction or like too many worsening symptoms when you start the binders, it may be that you haven't done enough of that lipid replacement therapy. So your doctor may tell you, stop the binders, let's up your lipid dose, let's give you a couple weeks, and then let's try again. So again, talk to your doctor about what's right for you, but that could be what's happening there.
And then the final suggestion with the binders is make sure you're timing them away from food. So depending on the binder you're taking, it's going to be 30 minutes to an hour away from food. And you want to make sure you're eating fat in those meals. The reason for that is they are bile acid sequestrants. So you want to be producing biles, and fat is what triggers that bile release. So fat creates the bile production, and then that allows the binder to grab onto the biotoxins. And then you want to make sure you're taking binders away from meals so that you're not just binding to food, but you also want to make sure you're taking them away from other supplements or medications, especially other medications, because if it's binding to those medications, the binder and the medication that you're taking is going to be less effective. So those people who are taking daily birth control or thyroid medication or those things you want to work, those medications you want to be effective, don't take them with your binders. Make sure you're spacing them. I think the recommendation is 2 hours away from any sort of supplement or meds.
And so, how do you know if it's working? We have a lot of questions like that in the CIRS group, that's for sure. Hey, I've been on the binders for a few weeks. What's going on? When am I done here? Well, first of all, the healing process takes a long time, so have patience. But like I already mentioned before, your symptoms may get worse before they get better. That does depend on your whether you're in exposure and all that sort of thing. Maybe that particular binder, let's say you started on cholestyramine, it's a little too intense for your body. Maybe you need to drop down to something like Welchol or even MycoBind for your body to tolerate it. So that's something to keep in mind. You may get some symptoms that worsen, like Jacie said, and I experienced it too, super fatigued within the first couple weeks of starting the binders. But then it went away. And then I was fine. And I really couldn't even tell that I was taking binders. That's more on the normal side. But if you're like, now you have headaches and nausea and you don't want to eat and like all these other things, definitely tell your doctor and make sure they give you a plan for adjusting that treatment for you so that it is tolerable. It should be tolerable. Something you don't suffer through taking binders. Generally speaking, it shouldn't be that bad. The other, so the way to know if they're working really is your symptoms. Are they getting better after said adjustment period? I know that with Jacie and I think we both started feeling improvements within 4 to 6 weeks, which is quick for the average patient. So if you take longer, that's okay. That's still normal. But I remember just having more energy suddenly. And I just woke up and was like, huh, I'm not as tired today. And I didn't sleep any differently the night before. I didn't change anything else. It was just the binders were doing their job. So you'll notice some of your symptoms lessening over time. And of course, if you're a member of the CIRS group, Jacie made this lovely symptom tracker for the members to use to actually track their symptoms as they're going through the protocol. And that's a really helpful way to be able to visually see things improve over time. And that is a great sign that the binders are working.
Yeah, for me, I think it was 8 weeks after getting out of exposure on full dose binders. I had been in constant pain for over 8 months at that point, and 8 weeks on the binders, out of exposure, I had my first pain-free day. So there is a lot to look forward to with the binders, and I know we've said a lot about like they're fatiguing and you may have difficulty tolerating them, but like when they start working, oh my gosh, it's so good.
Yeah. Yeah. Got to throw a party. It's very
Yeah.
exciting.
So the more, objective ways that you could tell that they were working would be tracking your blood work, which you should be doing with your provider regularly anyways. So MMP9, C4A, TGF, beta 1, VEGF, MSH, all of those should be improving as you're taking the binders. And then the other thing you can do is the VCS test, the visual contrast sensitivity test, which some of you might be familiar with as part of the diagnostic process for CIRS, but it's also an amazing tool in terms of tracking your progress in recovering and then also tracking future exposure. So your scores should be improving as you are getting better, especially in columns C and D. It's really the two that you really want to see improvements in. And when you're doing the VCS test, if you can try to do it in the same conditions every time, Surviving Mold has a VCS test that doesn't need to be calibrated, which is super helpful compared to VCStest.com. Does have to be calibrated every single time you do the test. So it's super helpful if one, you can do the surviving mold because you're not going to have the effects of any discrepancies of the calibration, but also if you can do it in the same situation, so same lighting environment, same screen, etc.
Yeah, it's a great way to track and relatively inexpensive, and you don't have to go get your blood drawn. You could do that test more often than the blood draw, I guess is what I mean. Yeah, I hope this helped you guys figure out how to take the binders, what binders are best for you. I know you'll probably see a lot of, again, the more I'm calling out the mainstream mold community, talk about these other binders and, oh, I got healthy on just these other binders and getting out of my house. They probably don't have SIRS. That's like the thing. They probably don't have the genetics that prevents their body from detoxing on its own. If you take a non-SIRS person and put them in mold, they will get sick, just like a SIRS person eventually. Maybe it'll take longer, it'll look different, lots of things, but they'll also get sick. The difference is when that non-SIRS person leaves that environment and maybe does some things to support their own detox process. They're pooping every day, they're going to the sauna or working out, they're moving around, they're doing all that stuff, maybe taking some supplements. Their body's going to detox eventually. It will. And so I believe that those people got better on these other binders because they probably don't have the genetics that show that they can't. People with SIRS have different genetics, and that is why the Shoemaker protocol is the only clinically proven protocol to actually help people with SIRS, which means that you have one of those haplotypes we talked about earlier. And I will put a link in the show notes to an at-home swab test in your mouth to test your genes if you would like. No affiliation. We don't make kickbacks on any of these links. It's just for your information. If you want to test your genes and see if you do have one of the SIRS haplotypes, you can do that. And then that can hopefully inform your next move on how to get better.
So if you are interested in joining us other Wheaties, wait, are we the wheat or are we the non-wheat?
I think we're the wheat.
Okay, if you want to join other Wheaties for more resources and support, you can join us over at the CIRSgroup.com.
We'll see you there.